The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. And now it's to help you only work 4 days a week. Because this week we learned from Dipti Bramhandkar. She's the Executive Strategy Director for North America at Iris Worldwide. And it just so happens that she only works 4 days a week. Because Dipti's experience has been honed by working with iconic brands like Jeep, Burger King, Virgin Atlantic, Cadbury Dairy Milk, P&G, which includes Head & Shoulders, Pampers, Crest, and more, and Nestle cereal partners like Cheerios, Shredded Wheat, and more. So she's leading the strategy at Iris. It's a full-service creative agency. She has truly found a way to balance work and life, something we all try to achieve, but we actually learned how she negotiated her working days to allow for more of actually living. She breaks down her break-in and tells us about Iris and how you can work 4 days a week, maybe someday. Dipti is a phenomenal strategist and human, and she lists out resources you can follow to learn how to also be remarkable. And you can only find those on our Instagram at Breaking and Entering Pod, all one word, at Breaking and Entering Pod. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I am your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right, Dipti Bramhandkar, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. Thanks so much for coming on. This is going to be a fun episode. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's such a nice, break from the usual to have a chance to just talk about work and life and this crazy industry that we're in. So I appreciate the chance to talk with you. Nice to meet you also.
Of course. I like what you said, that because sometimes we can we're in the weeds for so long, and it's nice to step back and realize what we're doing and reflect. So it is pretty therapeutic for me as well.
It's really nice to just take a step back.
Great. So we're going to take a step back, and the goal really is to let the world know about who you are, what you do, where you work. And there's actually something really interesting. I want to tease it right off the bat. I probably already said in the intro but you only work, is it true you only work 4 days a week?
I would just put a little asterisk next to only.
Okay.
Which is technically, my contract says I work 4 days a week, but in our industry, it's super fluid. So I work when I need to, and that includes Fridays, and sometimes that includes Saturdays and Sundays and all the other stuff that goes with our fast-paced life. But yes, my contract says 4 days a week, and I've been doing that at Iris, and I did that at other agencies as well.
Now, I don't even want to ask you what hours you're billing, though. I'm sure it'll be beyond, the standard there. So we'll get into that. I wanted to tease that out in the beginning.
Yes.
How do you even get that in your contract? What does that mean? What's the balance like? There's so much to uncover there. We're going to put that off. We want to start with intro in the beginning here.
Cool.
Because you're the Executive Strategy Director for North America at Iris Worldwide. And you're also a playwright and a human being, it says on your LinkedIn bio. So that's a lot of stuff. I'm glad you're a human being. That's important. Sometimes we overwork people. We forget that we're all humans. So that's good to know too. But tell us, you're our first guest from Iris Worldwide. So tell us about you and your role, and then we can get into Iris. But first, you and your role.
Sure. So my role is to look at the strategic output for North America, specifically around brand strategy or integrated strategy, formerly known as account planning, depending on how old you are and what country you started your career in. And I work across most of our key clients, and my team is based across the offices that we have in North America, primarily in Atlanta, New York, Chicago, and San Francisco.
Nice. How many people are in those? So do you oversee all those people in those regional offices?
I oversee the strategy team that's
Mhm.
dispersed across our offices. Yeah. And
What are those numbers looking like, give or take?
we've got like 15-ish people. And then we also have digital transformation
Mhm.
strategists and other folks who are specialists who sit sort of adjacent to my
Yeah,
team and have their own, great contributions to the work we're doing.
love it. And I know strategy is a really sought after entry level position, or is there such thing as entry level strategy position? I'm not sure. So I want to definitely uncover what that means too. Um, but back to Iris. So you oversee North America, all of the strategists in these different regional offices. What are the client like? What does that look like? Are you overseeing improving strategies from each office? Are you making sure everybody's aligned for Iris? Are you looking at client work? Give us the rundown of what you're actually doing.
I mean, the fun thing is that my each day is like a little bit different, but I have a few core responsibilities. One is making sure that I look after the pastoral care of my team, the senior leaders who are my direct reports and their teams have clear communication
Yep.
about expectations for their role. I also work on client work. So, and this is one of the things that I really love about Iris and why I've been here for so long, that every single person, regardless of their role, rolls up their sleeves and does
Yeah.
work. And that means like
Yeah.
literally creates presentations and presents. And so sometimes I'm the day-to-day strategist on a client. Sometimes I'm overseeing someone else. Sometimes I'm a sounding board. So I play a lot of different roles. But really, the main intention is to make sure that the team is equipped with what they need to
Yeah.
solve problems
Yeah.
that are coming in the door every day.
Love it.
Yeah.
And how long have you been in this role?
So I've been in this role for about 4 years. And before
Wow.
that, 3 years as head of strategy for New York, for our New York office. And so
Gotcha.
7 years at Iris, but kind of a little like half and half, basically, in those two roles.
Well, incredible. I love it. What would you say if you can position Iris as an agency, like to the people that haven't heard about it as an agency or just learning about it right now? How do you position Iris in meetings or just like us talking? Like, what is Iris? What do you guys do?
That's such a great question. And I think most agencies would say that that they exist to help clients navigate complex problems.
Sounds good to me. It sounds fair.
But what we say at Iris, and what I love about it, is that we have a single product called Progress. And so we combine our commercial and creative expertise to create progress for clients. And that can be, you know, lot like strategic solutions, creative solutions, consulting, imagining what the future looks like for them. And Iris is if you put all of Iris North America in a single room, we are a powerful engine of very smart, humble, and
Hmm.
hardworking people. It's like a ego-free zone,
Sure.
and you and clients get to work with the people that pitch their business.
That's
So
good.
we don't do a hit and run. We're all in the room together. So yeah, so it's one of those agencies that I think once you encounter us, we tend to grow our clients, which is really a great way to grow.
I like
Um,
it.
so that's how I would characterize Iris.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Who are you working on right now, or who have you worked? What are some projects you worked on in the past?
Yeah. So client wise, we've got, an amazing range of clients.
Mm.
Samsonite, Bentley, PayPal,
Nice.
Ripple, which is in the crypto space. Previously we've done tons of like Alkbev, like Smirnoff, and we've done work with Jeep and Chrysler. And so lots of iconic brands, and then also lots of great B2B brands that are like
Yep.
gigantic that maybe some people haven't heard of before,
Sure.
but like enter into our day to day in ways that we don't really think about always. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking through the website now. That's also like if you're always check out the company website. If you're looking out at agencies, look at the people, look at the work. Those are super important. So love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And you've
And
been there
such,
for a long time, I feel like 7 years at one spot. What's kept you there so long?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, our clients have been with us. Some of our clients have been with us for a long time, like including Adidas and Samsung, who I didn't mention before, some of our biggest
Okay.
global clients.
What work do you do for like Adidas? Like, do you have a part of their business, or what are the projects they're giving you guys?
We touch a lot of their business. We do everything from like product launches or helping them get ready for the Olympics or
Sure.
specific events like the World Cup.
Nice.
Uh, so it's a pretty cool
A
wall
great
of
client.
relationships. They are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're fantastic. But
And Samsung too. I feel like they do a lot of great activation work. I'm not sure if you guys touch that, but it seems like I'm seeing some really interesting stuff come from them every year.
yeah, we have done a lot of experiential work for them and digital campaigns and everything across the board. Our relationship with them is like really fundamental to our business. So
Nice.
yeah. But you asked what keeps me at
Yeah.
Iris. I have been through in my career a lot of pretty large agencies. And what I felt at Iris is that it had a really strong kind of entrepreneurial spirit. And a lot of the founders are still involved in the business, and you can kind of
That's good.
feel that. And so I really stay for the people.
Yeah.
And, the fact that, when I say human being, I feel like Iris is a pretty human place.
Good. Not
And
robots.
not robots. No,
Yeah.
not robots. Yeah,
There
exactly.
are places that feel like that. There are. And it's real, it's a thing. Like overworked people are not treated as humans, sadly, in some places, some of these advertising shops. So that's good that, I mean, if you've been there for 7 years, there's proof there. So that they treat you well.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to pay it forward too. So you want to keep your treat your teammates and your
Mhm.
colleagues and who become your friends in the way that you want to be treated. It's kind of like the golden rule, but it's hard to
Yeah.
apply
And
sometimes.
I think we're here at the sweet spot now. So let's dive more into the 4-day contract, because treating you like human, actually giving you some more time to to do whatever you do on your free day, your extra free day, that whatever that day happens to be. So how did that work out? When did that start? How do you, tell me all about it. Working 4 days a week.
Yeah, sure thing. So I spent the middle part of my career for about 8 years in London, working in London. And I was also going to grad school while working at Cambridge. And it was very intense. And I knew that when I had to keep working, to sort of pay for life and pay for school.
Sure.
And I didn't think I would be able to do that on a full-time schedule. So when I went to McCann Erickson in London, I just sort of went out on a limb and said, can I do a shortened work week? They had like a potential maternity cover available that turned into a full-time, like permanent job
Yeah.
shortly thereafter that I was in for several years. And they said yes. And then when I decided to move from McCann, I saw the benefits. Like I was able to kind of do well in my grad program. And I mean, it was very hard still.
Of course.
And
At
so
Cambridge, I can only imagine. What was that grad program, real quick?
it was in English literature,
Beautiful.
modernism specifically. Yeah. And so so when I moved to Saatchi and Saatchi, I negotiated that as well. And I said it, because I had a track record of being able to run a portfolio of clients from a strategy point of view
Yeah.
and manage my time. And I've sort of kept that sort of ambition as I went through my career. And so it really started with a need,
Yeah.
and now it's just become part of the way that I like to work. And it's worked for me like quite well.
So, wow. Okay. So it started off because you were in grad school. So, but are you still like, you're billing over 32 hours? I'm sure you're not just working 8 hours a day on the days that you do work. I'm sure do you feel like you're overcompensating on those days that you are in to make up for that missed day? Or do you have a healthy balance? How do you manage, like, how do you balance your time?
Well, I've been doing this for 22 years, so I know where to spend my time and where not to. So that's
Yeah.
helpful. I have a
And that
great
comes with experience, because we are talking to aspiring and people that are just breaking entering. So give us
yeah.
some insight on how to do that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It comes from experience. It comes from knowing, where you can make the most impact. It comes from being flexible, right? So like I know that client work must continue, and if there's like a mandatory thing that's happening, on a specific Friday, then,
Yeah.
I will work around that. So it's like, having boundaries, communicating that, realizing you don't want to let your team down, building those relationships so your
Yeah.
team can continue the work.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, sometimes I compensate for not working on Fridays at odd times or on the weekend and stuff like that. But it's
Yeah.
remote working has made that a little bit fluid for people. And I'm kind of the camp that people who are sitting in an office for 5 days a week are not necessarily working more than people who aren't, or people who are working flexibly. It just means that they're there.
Yeah.
So
Of
that's
course.
one thing. It's like, what is your productive working schedule look like? What works best for you? And how do you build trust and socialize that with the team?
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, I didn't do that from day one either. I didn't go in with like, hey, I'd only want to work flex time, because that would be more like freelancing. I did that after I had, you know, been in the industry for a little bit of time and had a track record of making an impact. And so I felt like I had a little bit more leverage.
For sure.
Yeah.
You can't so people listening don't what do you like we shouldn't just on our first job. I only want to work 4 days a week.
I mean,
Not necessarily you tell me. Is that
well,
a possibility? Like how do we make this advice to our audience?
yeah, that's a fair, I mean, that's a great question. My thing is, you don't know until you ask. So you should ask, but you should also have a reason.
Yeah.
Working less is not really a reason, like I would rather not work 5 days a week. I might say I would rather not work and still get paid, at
Mhm.
all. So what I would say is, why would a flexible working arrangement, whether that's 4 days or some other combination, be better for you in your life? And in a specific circumstance, you know, you might get that thing or you might not, but that doesn't mean you'll never get it. And it also doesn't mean your employer doesn't care. It's a combination of being in the right place and having a reason
Yeah.
to ask for that.
Yeah. Because one day I do want to get my master's or an MBA. I can imagine that being plenty more hours on top of the hours that I'm already working. So that is interesting. I haven't thought about that. And there's no resentment. You build trust, you establish communications, and you've been doing this for years. It's for me, that would intimidate me as I'm just starting out in my career. But I mean, you're a pro at this. Like, there's no issues ever. I mean, you just handle. Everybody knows, and you handle it well. How is it all going? Like,
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's never perfect, but the other way isn't perfect either. So that's what I always say to folks, that 5 days a week isn't the best science. It's just what we're used to. And
oh
4 days
yeah,
is right for me, but it may not be right for everyone. So, it really is a give and take. It really is. And yeah, sometimes it's hard because I have, another part of my life that I devote quite a lot of time to, and it's hard to balance. But in the same way people are managing like their personal lives and things that they're increasingly bringing to work, this is me doing that and setting the precedent for other people to hopefully do the same if it's right for them.
nice. Has anybody else adopted this model, or have you ever influenced anybody in your life to
I
do this?
think a lot of people have wanted to do it, but kind of similarly, like, is it the right time in my career? And also again, like, why? Because if 4 days a week is just something that you want because 5 days a week feels like a lot and you want a 3-day weekend, it's unfortunately it's like harder, that's a hard argument to make for
Yeah.
business. But if you can say, look, I'm looking after this is my commitment. I promise not to let, anyone down. This is what my team will encounter. And I also, really appreciate that I've had very progressive supervisors. So when I made those requests the first time, they were like, yeah, okay, I'd rather have this person in the business than not at all.
But you were going to, I mean, from when you went to grad school, that makes sense. That was your reason. But
Yeah.
as you kept going from job to job, how did you validate that again? Can you remind me?
Yeah. So after I left, I had been working for about 15 years at that point. I was at Saatchi. When I left Saatchi, this is in London, I decided to start my own consulting practice, and I did that for 4 years. And I liked the flexibility of what that allowed me to do in my life,
Of course.
specifically write, which is, my not a hobby, but actually like something that gives me a lot of purpose. Uh, and so when I went into Iris after that period of time, I put it out there. I said, this is what I like. This is something that I'm building in the rest of my life. Let me see how this works. And then, of course, you have to demonstrate it, right? So
Yeah.
if everything starts to, things will get wobbly and other people might, wonder and question. But then when they see that you're devoted to working as best you can with them, I think it works fine. And also, like in 2022, I mean, I started having these conversations before people would even admit that they had lives outside of work. It was still like a really different time. But
Yeah.
now, I mean, I think we talk about all these things, and we should be talking about all these things all the time.
I like it.
So
Definitely inspirational. It's something to have in our arsenal for sure to think about. I mean, when I have a 4-day work week, just because of a holiday, I think those are my most productive weeks. I think there's been studies too. I don't know. I've heard it. I've seen it on the news and stuff. I don't know if other countries have adopted it, but I've seen that there are studies that show that you become more productive. So,
oh yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. What was your first job in advertising? How did you break in? This is the point of the podcast, is really to understand your story. Where did you go to school? What was that moment that you said, hey, I want to do this for a living?
Great. So I went to Cornell University and I studied English, and I hadn't taken a single marketing or communications or business course in my 4 years. I had a liberal arts education with a very hefty dose of science. And I knew I wanted to do something that combined creativity with, a career, like a real career path.
Yeah, something that would bring in some revenue.
Yeah, yeah. I had to pay for my life and support myself
Fair.
and, be a grown up. And so I started looking, in my senior year, like as people do at different places. And at the time, there were actually recruiters that would come to the school, and they
Yeah.
were based in New York, and and I don't know what the case is now.
Yeah.
And
It's coming back.
one recruiter in particular, and I had a great conversation, and she's like, look, I have a specific industry that you might be interested in. It's advertising. And I had never thought about it. I
Right.
didn't know anything. And she got me an interview, and within a few weeks a few months, I was starting as, basically an entry-level position on Burger King.
What was the role?
It basically, at that time, it was at now Mullenlow, but at the time it was called Low Lintas.
Okay.
And the role for the first few months was like an entry level, like basically account coordinator.
Yeah.
And then you would be siphoned to different places. And it was pretty clear within the first few months that strategy was a place that, like, my way of being and what I was interested in was the right path. So then I went in to become a junior strategist.
Oh, okay. So was this going into this? What was the role called? Was it a rotational program, or was it just kind of like this
Yeah.
AAE role?
No, I think it was called coordinator. I don't remember exactly.
Sure.
I probably know. But everybody got a chance to kind of work
Oh,
with,
beautiful.
yeah, like production, creative, account.
And some agencies have this today. I got this on my first job, but the pandemic screwed me. I had like an immersion program where I was supposed to rotate for a year. That got canceled, and then I was placed in one spot. But if anybody is out there, like, definitely look into these types of programs. They're sometimes a year long to like even longer. And it's like it's a year-long internship. Basically, we're trying out different departments, like you said. So those are like, keep an eye out for those. I know Ogilvy has one that's super, super competitive. That's like craziness. I heard some rumors about their application process. I'm like, I don't care that much,
Yeah.
but it's something to look out for.
Yeah. I mean, things have changed a lot because agencies are much less opaque. Like, you can get so much information.
Yeah.
When I started, everything was like really, it felt very hidden, and like you had to use a recruiter. And now there are lots of ways. And I always say to people, it's like, it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't hurt to like do your research and try to find someone and just say, can I just talk to you for, it's amazing. For every no, few no's, you'll get a yes, and you'll learn something about the industry. You'll learn the vocabulary. You'll learn something more about what you're looking for. It's not just what you read, but what lived
Yeah.
experience looks like.
So you're saying just like reach out to people that are working in the industry, talk to
Yeah,
them.
like if you've got like anything in common, like you went to the same school or you lived in the same state, or even you read something they wrote and you're like, oh my gosh, I loved your article.
Yep. On
Just
LinkedIn, leave a note, just find
Mhm.
one connection point, go to LinkedIn, go to connect and hit add note. If you do that and you have something that's interesting and you're excited and you say, hey, I saw this article you wrote, I really enjoyed it, I would love to connect and chat for 10 minutes. Do that every day, 5 different connections a day, and it'll help you. Like that's what I did for this podcast. And then soon you start building up like momentum, like, oh, I know this person. You ask them if they have any other people they recommend in production, and then you find you end up talking to a bunch of people in production. So you just pick a route.
that is yeah, exactly. And it's, I always say that, whenever I meet people who are in undergrad for if I'm going to a class to talk or someone's asked me, I remember impressions more than I remember like endorsements or experience or degree. Like I remember the impression that the person made on me. Like, were they really listening? Were they
Yeah.
interested? Were they prepared versus like, oh, I've had like 3 internships, but I'm going to show up like 10 minutes late and I'm like kind of bored during the
Yeah.
conversation.
You can't do
So,
that. You'll get dropped immediately.
yeah, yeah. But
It
it's
takes
amazing.
27 seconds to make a first impression
Yeah,
that lasts a long, long time. So start off strong, start off excited, start off interested. Always be interested.
always be interested. Yeah.
Love
No,
it. Amazing. So Mullen Low what was it originally called?
it was originally called Low Lintos,
The Lintas.
and then it was called
And
like, yeah.
you went to a career fair, right? It was like a recruiting event.
It was, I don't remember, to be honest, I don't remember if it was a fair
Or
or if I just found this recruiter that was like associated with the school and I
yeah,
emailed her. And I
either
was like,
way.
I want to move to New York, help me,
Yeah.
here's what I do well. And I actually got a contract on the spot.
Oh, heck
So,
yeah.
so that was like awesome and not expected. But basically the person who interviewed me, Matt Heller, who gave me my first job, said, I think it would be great to have you hold on, and literally went to HR, got something. And, at the time you're thrilled because you have never
Yeah.
had a job beyond like college jobs before. So it felt like a real boon, something really special. So I always remember it. I was so grateful because he was so nice, and he could tell from the way that we were speaking that I would learn quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas I think there's a lot of emphasis here about like, how much do you know about the industry? And the truth is, like, even if you study, you don't really know until you get there. So I really look for people when I'm hiring who are, who are curious, who have great writing skills, great analytical, passionate about the world versus, I have a degree that reflects. I don't think a certain kind of degree means you'll be better off or better suited for the industry.
No. Yeah. In some cases, you're better off not studying advertising or marketing. Sometimes you're more interesting, like if you have an English background or
Yeah,
really anything you can, as long as you show that you're a critical thinker and you're curious and you're passionate about pop culture, the world, anything, really, you can kind of bend that narrative to be like, I study XYZ and this is why I think I'd be good with advertising. Like it's pretty malleable
totally. It totally is.
and
Yeah.
sometimes preferred, unfortunately for me. But
I mean, you and I are cut from the same cloth clearly, because that's my huge bias. Like whenever I meet someone and they haven't done that and they're like, I studied math or I studied history or this specific thing I'm really
yeah,
passionate about. I'm like, oh, you're an interesting person. You've got
yeah,
like knowledge, and I can teach you all this other stuff, or
yeah.
not
You're
me
gonna have to
personally.
get taught either way.
That's
So
right. So why not start with someone who, can have a great conversation, is really articulate and
right, and you never know how those skills. So like, I guess like we can talk about that too. It's like if you're a student today, if you were to go back and in the world today, like how would you approach breaking into advertising, into strategy again? Like if you had to restart, knowing what you know now.
How would I restart? I would learn more about how businesses operate in the real world, and not like companies, like giant companies, but even as something as simple as, oh, there's a small business in the town where I grew up, and this is what I've like observed about them and as they grew. Like an example I always give is there's an two Indian brothers who started this amazing chai company in New York City called Kolkata Chai Company, and they just got
Mhm.
a bunch of funding and they're going to expand. And I look at their behavior, and so I try to use that as a case study, because it shows that, one, like, I have observations about businesses. It's something that maybe someone hasn't heard of, so there isn't like, you can't really check if you come in with like a big, Pepsi or something like that. Like,
Right.
I know you read about Pepsi and how Pepsi
Yeah.
grew, or
You read a case
that's,
study that's already been
yeah.
published.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
would say, like, go and find interesting stories from, like, people who have created businesses and how they brand themselves and how they work in work in the world. And I would also,
That's smart.
like, the other piece of advice I often give it to people, which was given to me, is that there are a lot of smart people, but there are not a lot of helpful people. And if you can show that you are helpful, meaning you will figure it out, you will make life easy for the people that you're working with, you will say yes, and show up with enthusiasm even when you don't want to. That is so underrated. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
and it's free. I mean, you don't really need anything to have those things. You just need the right kind of attitude. So I
Yeah.
love it when people are like, yeah, I know that's not part of my job description, but I'm just going to do this thing because I know it'll be helpful. So I'm just going to.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I try to do. Try to
Cool.
have like because I'm new too. Like I just started a couple months ago at my first agency.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Awesome.
yeah, so I show up every day, 5 days a week, no matter what. That might not be healthy for people nowadays. It's good for me and for my mental health to keep boundaries. I've talked about a lot. Like I don't like mixing work and home. That's just me personally. I'm not endorsing that lifestyle, and I don't think everybody should do that if that's not for you.
Yeah.
But I do. And part of the reason why I do that is when you're showing up, you're seeing people. My job is kind of to be a communications coordinator. So I need to show up and talk to people. But also, I can get like people could be like, hey, Gino, come in this room. We have a quick question for you. Or what do you think about this? Or can we get your opinion on this? And then you stumble your way around. So just being there and like showing up, I'm like, I would love to do this. I always am trying to be enthusiastic, even though if I have no clue, I'll say it too. I'm like, not really sure, but I want to help. Let's do
I
it.
I love it. I mean, I'd say that I don't know the answer like every single day, and I've been doing this for 2 decades. It's like nobody really knows. We're just trying to figure it out, and the more
Yeah.
experience you have, it just means you're starting slightly beyond the starting line, but then everyone catches up and you have to, you know,
Yeah.
work with
And
it. So,
if you can bottle up that emotion or that mindset and show that to recruiters, bef- like that will make you very hireable. Like if you say that in interviews, like I want to be there. I want to take opportunities. I'll try anything out for the agency. I'm willing to learn. Then how are they not going to want to hire you? Like it's pretty simple
and
in that
it's
case.
I say to people, it's like I wish we lived in a perfect meritocracy, but we don't.
No.
So, I always give yourself the best chances, and being a helpful, humble, passionate person is pretty good when you haven't had a lot of work experience.
Yeah.
It's like good ingredients,
Yeah. Yes, it's great to start off. You build off that for sure. So I love it. Great. Any other big pieces of advice like before you came on that you thought about maybe leading up to this that you wanted to get out to the world?
Yeah. What I'm finding out more and more is when I started in the industry, people were really, or at least strategists, were looking out into the world, and they were in the world a lot more. And as I've gone through my career, there's like this sort of vacuum that's forming, which is like I'm just looking at industry trade. I'm talking about issues that are specific to the industry, and that's very important, but that's not the
Yep.
only thing. So, if we're talking about like the human condition or human insights or what connects a business to, a specific strategic recommendation, we need to be in the world experiencing those things. So whatever that is, and like a wide range, like basically in the bottom line is break the bubble, break your own bubble, change your perspective. And because we live in, our vacuum gets really small, and then we're like, wait, I have nothing to draw on. I have no inspiration. So
what I love about my company is like they have like funding for you to learn something new or to do classes or to go and get subscriptions at magazines that might not be in advertising or marketing, museums in Chicagoland. Like they really encourage that. And like, I think that's a really good advice for everybody listening. Like, get outside of the ad trade publications. I personally, for my job as a comms director and trying to get our agency in the news, I do need to know that stuff very well.
Yeah.
And the creatives and the strategists need to be outside of the world, but it helps like just to get out there and know what culture is moving at, especially for strategists.
I think people need to know very well what's happening in the industry, but it's really helpful to have an external perspective.
Yeah.
Because original thought comes from the edges. It doesn't happen in sector trade.
Of course.
So that's what
you definitely have to understand like what gets caught, like what news is newsworthy within the trade publications, but then you need to go out to actually form those fun thoughts. So.
Exactly right. Yeah. It's like, oh, this quick service restaurant, like it's rolling out a new secret menu thing. Go and see what it's like.
Yep.
Or go have the experience that someone's talking about if it happens to be where you live, or if it's an online thing, go check it out.
I feel like I would go crazy as a strategist though, and like just keep interviewing everybody, and I would pick people's brains all the time and like just annoy people. I feel like I'd be way too into it, and I'd go crazy. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, I'm like definitely crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not really from being a strategist.
But it goes, it makes you a good strategist, I'm sure.
Yeah. You've got to be curious. Otherwise, life would be very boring otherwise.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Dipti. I have no other questions. We've covered a lot. I really appreciate you coming on. Can people reach out to you if they want to talk more about strategy, or if you have any other connections for them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I love hearing from people and hearing.
What's the best way to do that? LinkedIn, okay?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably good. Just
cool.
Keep it in one place. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, then you heard her. If you want to connect, go to LinkedIn. Dipti, that's all I got. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. That was so fun.
Of course. Thank you so much for listening to this entire episode of the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. If you like what you heard, it would mean a lot to us and help us grow and get better guests and better break-ins if you can go to Apple Podcasts and leave us 5 stars and a small review if you have the time. Be sure to connect with our guests if you like what they said by going to our Instagram at Breaking and Entering Pod. That's all one word, Breaking and Entering Pod on Instagram. We have links to their portfolios and their LinkedIn, and they want to connect, so do that. And thank yous. Thank you to Mikey Malarkey, our audio engineer, and Buchan Jung, our creative director. Can't do it without you two, and a team from the University of Illinois. It's a student team from the agency called AdBuzz. They're a PR agency, and it's been a pleasure working with them. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next week with another amazing guest. Thank you for tuning in to Breaking and Entering. We want to be transparent with our valued listeners, so we'd like to disclose that this episode was made possible through a paid collaboration. The funds from this collaboration were used to produce this episode and contribute to the growth and enhancement of our show. At Breaking and Entering, we are committed to delivering high-quality content that informs, entertains, and engages our audience. We carefully select our partners to ensure that any sponsored or paid content aligns with the values and interests of our listeners. Rest assured that while this episode is a result of a paid collaboration, our opinions and creative control over the content remain independent and, of course, authentic. We prioritize providing valuable insights and experiences to our audience regardless of any paid partnerships. And we greatly appreciate the support of our sponsors and partners as they play a vital role in helping us bring content to your ears. If you have any questions about our partnerships or this disclosure, please do not hesitate to reach out to us at Geno, Geno, at breakenterpod.com. Thank you.